my name's Kim and today I'm doing a scrapbooking process video using the Hip Kit Club July main and embellishment kit, as well as one of their exclusive cut files for Hip Kit Club subscribers, which is this great beach scene. And I did see one of the DT of Hip Kit Club did a layout with this. And it inspired me. She did some painting on it. So I took the inspiration from that and created a painted background with the cut file. So in this first section, I'm using watercolor paints. I'm using 2 shades of blue and a shade of green. Now these paints have a shimmer in them, and I am just starting with the 2 layers, 2 different colours of blue, and then I'm going to add the green in just so that there's some variation in the colours. Now this is a textured cardstock. The cut file's been cut from it, and then I've left the inside pieces of the cut file attached to my sticky mat that I use in my Silhouette, and I'm leaving them on there so that when I paint them, they will dry flatter than if I remove them and just paint them on say my glass mat. So I'm hoping that the sticky mat will hold it in place. And yes, that is a Cricut mat, but I do use a Cricut mat in my Silhouette as well. So as I said, 2 shades of blue and a shade of green on the waves, and then the sun is being done with a yellow, a orange, and a sort of orangey pinky coral colour. So it turns out mainly orange, but there is again variation in that colour. Just adding some splatters because I really do want to get the variation in the colour of those waves, and I've set that aside to dry. So this is one of the pattern papers from the kit, and I am using a Vicki Boutin Foundation paper on the background. So the piece that I had is essentially is going to frame that round cut file, and I used the cut file and just had the outside edge of the cut file and cut that circle out of that pattern paper. So that's a perfect fit around the cut file. And what I've done is I used a wet paintbrush to mark the border of where the cut file will sit. And I am creating a watercolor background using the iridescent blue paint, watercolor paint from that same watercolor palette. And I am putting a more intense blue on the outside edge of the circle and watering that down so that it fades away to a very soft blue by the time it reaches the waves. So that ensures that the waves and the sky won't be the same colour. So the waves will be that a bit darker bluey green, and the sky by the time it reaches down to the waves is a very, very pale blue, and then the sun will sit on that pale blue sky. And I have set that aside to dry too. And now I'm going to start laying out how the various pieces are going to sit on the cut file. Now, originally when I started laying this out, I thought it was going to be with the photos on the right side because that's commonly where I put my photos, but it ended up that I actually moved them to the left. So I did a lot of work while the painting pieces on the cut file were drying, and I have used some of the cards from the Pocket Life kit. So sorry, I forgot. I did get the Pocket Life kit with this one. So I've got the main kit, the embellishment kit, and the Pocket Life kit. And I'm using those Pocket Life cards behind the photos to create layers. And then these are some tags that came from one of those kits. And I'm just picking out ones that are the right colours. So the main colours that I'm using on this layout are oranges, that tealy green colour or minty green colour, and blue. And so I have pulled out tickets that match in with that, and I'm using them on the sides of the photos. So these photos are of my son Benson quite a few years ago when we lived in Bulli, which is a suburb of Wollongong in Australia. and he used to do nippers. Every Sunday we would go down to the beach and we would do nippers. So my husband was the age manager and I was actually the treasurer of the Nippers Club. So we were quite involved in it, and our son did that for many years and really enjoyed it. Great outdoor lifestyle experience for him. And I do apologise that the bottom of my layout, I didn't realise, was sitting off the bottom of the screen, but most of the action happens further up the layout, so you're not going to miss a lot. And the little cluster that ends up at the bottom of the photos, you will see during the still photos at the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching my process video. If you're enjoying it, I'd really appreciate if you could give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe to my channel, and then you will see the new videos that I post up. And I do have a few coming up. So I should have 4 videos within the next week up on my channel. I apologise for the delay, but I've just had a few things happening in life and it has delayed me finalising this video. So I'm putting foam. So I had the layers of the Pocket Life cards, have distressed the edges of those, have put foam tape in and have layered those tickets on the side. So I do clip the tickets down and keep the bottom section of them that would be hidden below the photos. Now I believe my background is dry, so I'm still letting it dry a bit more. So I'm putting some more foam. So I'm nestling the 2 photos just in on each other, and I do that now, but I do have to pull it apart because I change the direction that I have all the photos, but that's fine. So I'm getting them all ready to be able to put onto the background as soon as it's dry enough. So it's been winter here, so it's quite cold. I'm in New Zealand. It's quite cold. Things take a bit longer to dry. So I actually have a little floor heater that runs in my office / scrap room, and I just sit them down on the floor in front of that, and it helps them dry quite a bit quicker than if I was just trying to air dry, particularly watercolor where I've been using a lot of water on it. So I've just used a wet glue. My favourite wet glue is Art Glitter Glue, which I have a fine tip on. And I use that to stick down the outside edge of the yellow, and now I'm using it to run round the cut file. Now I find that as long as I move quickly, it stays wet enough to stick the cut file down. Like I can get around the whole cut file and it will stay wet enough to stick down on the page. So some people have asked me about that. Art Glitter Glue tends to give you a little bit more time before it dries. So you can see that's stuck down directly onto that watercolor background sky. And now I am using foam tape, which I use just kids foam craft tape, which has foam sheets, which just has adhesive on one side. And I am popping up those waves, the inside of those waves, with that foam tape. So the magic of video, in a moment, you will skip through to the end of this because it's the same process. So just put some foam tape on, stick it down. So I use the adhesive from the foam tape on one side, and then I use my Art Glitter Glue on the other side of that foam. And I did the same thing with the sun, so it's popped up. And you can see here I'm trying to make these photos work and realise then that they need to go on the left, not on the right, because if I put them on the right, I cover up most of the wave action, and that's like a really beautiful part of this cut file, and I really didn't want to cover that up. So I decided that they needed to go on the left, so I just pulled them apart, pulled off the tickets and changed them so that the tickets were on the left side of the photo cluster, and the photos again nestle into each other. And again, I really apologise for the fact that I've cut the bottom of this layout off, but I am going to use wet adhesive and stick those photos down, again, just nestled into each other. And I'm making sure there's enough foam because, of course, the waves have foam under them. So the photos, in part, so that it sits solidly on the layout, needs a double layer of foam so that it can stick onto that foundation paper background and be at the right height. So as I say, the photos end up having 2 layers of foam if you take into account the waves, and then they sit just that bit higher so that they have more emphasis on them. Now I'm putting some foam on some of the embellishment pieces. So all of these embellishments are from the July Hip Kit Club kits. And I really like these kits because they have exclusive embellishments and they have a really good mix of stuff that I wouldn't necessarily be able to access. So obviously the exclusive stuff I definitely couldn't access, but there's also like little bits and pieces from other ranges are usually included, and I like that because I don't buy everything of every range that's available. So just adding some clusters of embellishments. So there's these really cute phrases, and I like the orange. I needed to have some other orange on the page because I've got the sun and the title nippers, which is done in the really cute orange font. And so those orange stickers help balance that. And then these are some wood grain embellishments that have like engraving on them to create designs. So that's a little sun that I've put above those word strips, and I use my T-square ruler to make sure that they're sitting straight on the page because I felt that they really needed to be straight, and the title's very straight and the photos are crooked, and obviously it's on a round sort of style layout. I'm playing with some frames to see whether I was going to add some extra like bobble shapes, circle shapes, but I decided that I really didn't like those on that layout. I think there's enough circle action going with the frame and the sun and the curling waves. So you can see that I have put a little embellishment cluster to the right of the photos. That's just a little die cut. And then I'm putting another die cut which says, I think it says, "Oh yes," next to nippers. And what else am I doing? So there's a little cluster that I'm now adding at the bottom between the two photos, which, as I said, you'll see in the still photos. So that's all stuck down, and I'm trimming off the edge of the foundations paper, the selvage strip. I really should do that earlier in the process. It becomes a problem once I have dimensional layouts. And now I'm finishing the layout with some splashes of that blue paint from that watercolor palette. So you just put some water into the little palette and you can just splatter it like any other splattering. So you can see there the glimmer in the waves and the sun. So thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate everybody who watches my videos. I'd love it if you left me a comment. Happy to answer any questions you may have about any of the process that I did or the products that I used. But thank you, and I will see you again soon. Cheers.